faith, business, legacy. Welcome to Strategies for Success.
Welcome back, guys. My name is Tyler,
I'm Travis.
and we're staying on theme for the next episode. This is Discipline Month. So last week we talked about discipline a lot, talking about how it's more important than motivation. This week we're going to stay on that track. We're talking about time and how it is a leadership tool. So we're going to start off with a scripture here. It's from Ephesians 5:15 and 16. Be very careful, making the most of every opportunity. So that's a summarized version of it, but a lot of these we're kind of giving you a little summary, and hopefully you'll take that and go read the full chapter.
Yeah, read Ephesians 5. It's good. I wanted to share a story with you and bring this mic in a little closer. I'm going to try to read it. Normally I like to tell this, but this one was really good, so I want to give it to you word for word. But there was a leader who consistently busy all the time. Now, I'm going to stop here for a second. Is that you?
Yes.
Yeah, me too. I was looking at Tyler, but I meant all of our listening audience as well. So think about it. Busy, busy, busy. All right. Meeting, conversations, fires to put out. You know, he told himself, I am working hard. I'm doing everything that I can. But at the end of each day, nothing meaningful had moved. The needle hadn't moved. Then one day, someone asked him a simple question. What did you actually lead today? Notice it did not say, what did you actually do today? Not what did you attend, not what did you react to, what did you lead? And it hit him. He wasn't leading his time was leading him. And the truth is, even Jesus didn't heal everyone in Israel. He moved intentionally, he prioritized his actions, and then he withdrew when necessary. And I want to tell you, that is key. I've watched a lot of leaders around me, the guys that are really just profound leaders, and I see them, how are they doing all this? And it's because they got a team around them, right? They're not the only ones doing it. They know how to delegate and how to also make people want to follow, not just go out and say, hey, hey, dummy, you need to do this. They actually want to follow. And then they say, hey, I need to take a minute and get away here just to refresh. And so I can come back with a fresh mind and we're ready to roll. So I want to challenge you. This ain't even the challenge, but I want to challenge you to think about that. Are you busy? Old country song, they call me the fireman. Mm-hmm. If that's your job as the manager or the leader, is that all day you're running around putting out fires. And if you've ever been a business manager or any kind of role of leadership, you know what I mean. Every day there's a problem. And if you're consistently dealing with problems, that means you don't have a process in place, you don't have people in place, and it leaves it up to you to be the fireman.
A lot of times they don't come to you like, hey, look at this great thing. It's more like, listen to this bad thing that just happened.
Yeah, or 911, or we have a problem.
Yep.
So remember, it's not about how busy you were. That's not leading, and that is not time management. When I first moved back to service, I told my dad, I said, listen, I want to be a manager and I want to grow here. I've been in sales for 6-7 years. This stuck with me. And my dad gave me a list of stuff to do, and it was getting close into spring and summer, and we were getting busy. And if you've ever ran a service department, no one's ever excited to come back with, oh, I'm so glad my tractor broke down. I got to come see you,
Mm-hmm.
So you're back there, and sometimes it's even worse as a sales guy, because they're like, my tractor or my piece of equipment's a piece of junk and it broke. Wait, you sold this to me.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like being a police officer and get thrown in jail or something. So I'm back in service. My dad gave me this list, and all day I'm thinking, he doesn't know how busy I really am. How am I going to get all this stuff done? And I just kept thinking about that. And I got tied up. You're on the phone, you're putting fires out. And at the end of the day, my dad said, hey, come up here and visit with me. And so I went up front and I started visiting with him, and he said, "Hey, how'd you get on my list today?" I said, "I only got a couple things done." He said, "Well, why not? How do you only get a couple things done?" He said, "Well, I told him, I said, I've been busy. I've been busy. I've been busy. Does this, and I hope maybe this is sounding familiar. All right." And he said, "This is the key that I have has stuck with me and I will never forget." And he said, "You know what that really means?" I said, "That I've been busy." He said, No. What you're telling me, I gave you stuff that I needed done. And he goes, who writes the paycheck around here? So, well, you do. He said, "So you think that if I told you it'd be pretty important, right?" I said, "Yeah, I'm not saying it's not. I just been busy, you know?" And he said, "Listen, what you're really saying is that you didn't make me a priority." And man, that hit, because he's like, if you really put everything else aside and said, it's got to wait till I get this list done, it would have got done. But we run around here saying how busy we are. And I've even been able to relate this back to my spiritual life. You know, we say, well, why didn't I do my Bible reading? Why didn't I spend some time in prayer today? I've been busy. And what you're really saying is that you didn't make it a priority to spend time in prayer or read your Bible.
Yeah, I think that's pretty easy one to think about. You know, I'm not greater than thou because I've fallen into this category myself plenty of times. But even like, or to use the Bible reading example, do you say, "Hey, did you read your Bible? 5 or 10 minutes today?" "Oh no, I didn't have time." "Well, do you think you scrolled your phone for 5 or 10 minutes?"
Yeah.
Yeah, I think most everybody does. So, whatever that is, you can replace that with something else. Like Travis was saying, you can make time for what you want to make time for, what you want to make a priority, and what is most important to you in your life.
Do you scroll at the end of the week? I challenge you to get on there and look at your phone and look at your weekly report. And I know some of that may be an audio book, or it may be, reading emails or stuff that needs to be done. But look at that and then ask yourself, what could I be doing to better myself? Could I be reading a book? Could I be, further in my education? Could I be reading my Bible or spending time in prayer? What could I be doing? Maybe it's just taking time to spend with our family. I think with a lot of the technology nowadays, and I love technology. I love a lot of the AI technology and different stuff that's coming out. But it also sometimes can make you distant from the people that you care about the most, right, in your own family.
I see it sometimes if you ever go out to eat and you'll see a whole family, a whole table of people, and they're all on their own phones, not even talking to each other. Yeah, pretty wild
It's
thing.
sad.
Yeah, it really is. But that's kind of normal now too. I've caught myself even sometimes if there's just a dull moment, you just pull your phone out and it's just like a muscle memory. Pretty sad. You got to be more intentional about making your time a priority, or valuing your time basically, and making what you want to be, what is important to you, making that a priority.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the time stewardship model. So think about this. You don't manage time, you manage your priorities. What gets scheduled gets done, and leaders control time. They don't react to it. So I find myself in that last one a lot, where I just react to stuff. Like Travis mentioned, kind of being a firefighter at times, and I've been trying to work on that to be more intentional and scheduling stuff and making it a priority, that what needs to get done, making a list. And, there's a lot of times where the example Travis was saying, you have a list of stuff to do at the beginning of the day. A lot of stuff happens, crazy stuff happens if you're super busy. And then at the end of the day, you look at your list and you didn't even get it done. Well, if you're in a leadership position or any position really, if you're not fulfilling your role, then you're kind of letting the whole team down. So making that a priority to realize, even if this other stuff feels important, sometimes you got to go to a place, if it's shut your door or whatever that may be, to where you can get your stuff accomplished. I have the problem where I feel guilty. Travis and I were talking about this a little bit before the episode, where it's like if we're not out there right next to the guys on the front line kind of mentality, that like I feel guilty where I'm not actually doing any work. Or sometimes you think you get busy just for the sake of being busy, and then you get at the end of the day and you didn't accomplish what you're supposed to accomplish in your role as a leader, then you really didn't fulfill your part of the team, the responsibilities.
I mean, you're the sports guy, and I like sports just enough to get me something good to eat and sit down and watch it. But can you imagine if the quarterback ran onto the field trying to play defense?
Yeah.
And then he
Wouldn't
gets his arm broke, and then he can't throw the ball, You got to focus and be the leader in what God has called you to do.
Yeah.
So let's talk about our FBL. And for those that are our weekly listeners, that's Faith, Business, Legacy. I like family being part of our faith and part of our legacy, but faith. These are tough questions. Is God getting your first time or your leftovers? I heard a pastor one time talking about, tithing, and he was referring to tithing not just about giving your money, but it talks in the Bible about giving your first fruit. And so are we giving 10% of our time? Are we giving our first of our time when we get up in the morning? Are we making time to talk to God, or are we making time to get on our phone or check the news or do what we're wanting to do? Some of that's a little bit of a self-sacrifice, and what we covered last week in discipline, it requires discipline, right?
Yeah.
So business, are you working in it or are you leading it? It's really cool at our store. I've seen leaders at all different levels, and as we've had people that have worked their way up from the inside, and worked their way up into management, they go from being the first line of defense to being someone who's actually scheduling and putting people to work. And sometimes that's tough, because they want to be out in the middle of it. And you're like, look, when everything goes bad and we need a manager up here to handle it, you're not available because you're too busy back here fixing a tractor, and that's the mechanic's job,
Yeah.
But I've also seen people get in there and then they really grow. And when that stuff starts to click, it's amazing how much you can accomplish when you're actually leading and you're not actually trying to work it, right?
Yep.
All right. Legacy. Are you present or just available? So I want you to apply that. Think about this with your family. When you come home from work, take 5 minutes, set in your truck in the driveway, take a deep breath, be ready to go in there because your family needs you. They don't need you just to be there. They need you to be available. And so when you go in and your son and you're, just completely wore out from the day, and he's like, hey, would you come out here and shoot some hoops with me? They need you to be available. When your wife says, hey, I'd like to share my day with you, you need to be available. And you need to make sure that if you're not making time for that, you need to readjust. I'm going to tell you, this has not been easy for me. It's easy to come home and be like, I've had a tough day. I just want to be my own guy. I want to go in here, turn the TV on. I want everyone to leave me alone. But you know what? When you make that commitment to a family, they're counting on you. They're needing you just as much, as you're needing them. So make sure that you're not just present, but you're also that you're available.
Yeah. And think about, where is your time leaking? So we'd mentioned the phone example. That's probably a big one for, I would say, most everybody right now. I've caught myself doing it a lot, where it's easy on the short videos. You can get to scrolling, and I've caught myself being like, I got 5 or 10 minutes, I'm going to watch stuff, and then 5 or 10 minutes turns into 30 minutes, and it feels like it wasn't that long. It feels like, you stop and think, what did I even watch? And can't tell you. I mean, it's just nonsense. It'd be short videos, and so I think a lot of people's attention span has gotten a little bit shorter, and they're not, we're not always valuing our time and thinking about how we really want to better ourselves, how we want to devote our time. You don't always have to better yourself. It's not like you got to be getting better all the time, but even relaxing. I think sometimes it's easy to get scrolling your phone and you think, is that really letting your mind have a break? Is it really relaxing? I'd say probably not. Probably not. So think about, where's your time leaking? Where are you losing time, valuable time that you could be spending with loved ones, could be spending in the Word of God or praying? Think about that and really kind of take a schedule. I mean, it doesn't have to be anything very complex, but just sit down and kind of think of your whole day through and where you devoted your time, where most of your time is going, and how maybe you could reallocate some of that to spend it where you need to spend it to further yourself. What are you saying yes to that you shouldn't?
Think of it like this on both of these, where your time's leaking. Have you ever noticed when you don't manage your money and like you go out to eat and things are happening, and you're like, where'd all my money go? And then you look back and you're like, oh yeah, I did. I went and ate there, ate there.
I've done that with my credit card statement. You're like, what? $1,000 bill. And then I scroll back through and I'm like, oh, yep, okay, I did do that. Yeah, I bought that. Went there.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's not much different with your time. Maybe you just need to do a time audit, right?
Yeah.
So where's all my time going? Well, it's probably just like it's real easy when you're, stop here and get something to eat, go in the gas station, get something to drink, go in here. Next thing you know, you've spent all your money, and it's the same thing with our time. And really, I'll just share
Like a
this with
budget
you.
for your time.
You got it. That's the planning. But think of it like this: your time is more valuable than your money.
Yeah.
Way more valuable.
Yeah, I heard a guy, he was a big health nut, but he's talking about there's been a little bit of a recent change with a lot of rich people, as they were talking about they're making their health much more of a priority because they realize when you get older and stuff, money can only take you so far. And so your health and your time is really what's the most valuable asset that you have. And, you know, he was using it in a health aspect where he's talking about they're prioritizing their health because they want to have more time and realize money's not everything. Well, that's just one example of reallocating their time around to make themselves healthier. But there's a lot of times where you just waste time. You're not even, you know, like I said, if you wanted to relax, try to be somewhat intentional about relaxing and not just doing something when you can, doing something just to fill time.
Yeah, exactly. Make sure you're getting the biggest bang for your buck.
I keep talking about the phone. I'm not against using your phone, but if, as Travis mentioned, if you look at your phone, I bet most everybody would be blown away by how many hours they're on their phone daily.
I mean, I looked at it recently and I got the report. I was like, there's no way. And kind of like you said, your credit card
Then
statement.
you look at the app usage, if it breaks it down, you're like, well, I did use that app. Yep, I did that.
And it's easy, especially in the evening. And that's probably when I need to be the most present, right, with my family. And it's easy to come in, you're like, I just need to unwind. But a lot of that, if you do a little research, what that does to your brain, it isn't helping you relax. In fact, and then a lot of us are wondering why we're so stressed.
Yeah. Well, think about in the span of human history, the smartphone is a very small speck on the timeline. So
Yep.
think about all the humans that came before that did not have that, did not have all the screens and stuff that we have. And, you know, a lot of people were probably were happier because they didn't have to, their time was spent with people.
Well, our technology, you know, is supposed to make everything so much easier. And then what it's done is it's allowed us to book a lot more stuff.
Yeah.
And so by scheduling all these things in, then we're running around and then we're stressed. And what I've done personally is I try to put like my Tuesdays and Thursdays. Those are the days that I book in any kind of meetings or interviews because that's the days I set aside. I know Monday when I get to work, I don't even be booking anything because there's always going to be something coming up. Monday, people break equipment over the weekend. It's just a busy day to get the week rolling. Friday's usually the same type thing. And then Saturday's a short day, and that's usually when I start planning my week for the next week. You know,
Yeah.
got 4 hours on 8 to noon on Saturday, and that's what I do. And I come in prepared. So maybe I think this is the perfect lead in. Tell us a little bit about the challenge.
Yeah, so the challenge, we somewhat mentioned it, but this is more specific. So take a time audit of your last 3 days. And like I said, it doesn't have to be super complex, but just get notebook and a pen, or I guess if you want to use your phone, you could use the notes on your phone or whatever, but just jot down, run through your day pretty quickly and just think how you start your morning. What are some of the first things you do? And just make a quick audit of your time throughout the last 3 days. Think about how that was spent. And then cut one non-essential activity immediately. So just one. I mean, that's pretty simple. Everybody has all kinds of activities throughout the day. If you got 24 hours each day, and that's 3 weeks, 3 days, 72 hours, I think we could find one non-essential activity that we could cut out immediately that would free up time to devote that to something else. And when you do cut out that, make sure you are devoting that new time to something else that's actually good and not just wasting time.
I'll tell you the one I was just thinking about today that I need to get back to, but I used to listen to a lot of radio, a lot of music, and I changed that and started listening to books. And one of the books that I remember reading that just really stood out to me was Maximize Manhood by Edwin Lewis Cole. If you haven't read it, you need to read it. It's a great book, challenge you as a man, and it challenged me. And I just realized, you know, in about 8 hours of listening to this book, the challenge that it put on my life versus me just listening to music that didn't make any difference.
Yeah. One example I'd say my cousin challenged me to this was we were wanting to start working out together, but we thought he's got a wife and kids and got to get them to school and get them ready and all that kind of stuff. And so we were talking about wanting to work out together, but we were thinking mornings, but that's not realistic because of his kids and stuff. And then he also has a lot of activities we both do in the evenings and stuff. And we're just like, man, there's no time. So he came up with the idea is, hey, why don't we take our lunch break and go to the gym? Because there's a gym in town that's not very far away. And to me, it sounds a little goofy, but it's somewhat like a mind bender because I never really done that midday. And so I'm like, well, I don't want to do this. I started coming up with excuses. Well, we started doing it. It's actually been pretty awesome. I mean, hasn't always worked out exactly like we planned every day, but there again, he challenged me to say, well, if you really want to do this, we'll make it a priority and we'll make time to do it. And so that's just a simple thing that's happened in my life recently, but he kind of held my feet to the fire and said, well, if you really want to do it, we'll find a way to do it and we'll find time to do it.
Exactly. So Tyler, we've laid out the challenge. We've went through the whole process here. And remember, this is the time is the leadership tool. And that means it's now time to.
It's time to execute.
Strategies for success. We lead, we build, we bless. Faith in the fight, a vision inside. And legacy is our quest. Strategies for success. With courage we invest. Faith, business, legacy. That's our strategy for success.